Rob Halford buttocks, gigantic, white, flashing. Split up the middle with a G-string. Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is the Drunkduck QUACKCAST. I'm Ocean, and with me is Pants is Tanserine, Pit, and Baines. And of course, if you combine Tance and Pit, you get Pants, which is a handy thing to know. That's where you can put your Rob Halford bum inside your pants.
If you say Pants Bane 3 times fast, then his actually shows up in the middle of the night, grants you 3 wishes. I don't know. I'm going to try not to bring up Judas Priest throughout this whole thing, so please help me by avoiding references to said metal gods.
I will, but this is a we're going to be talking about gaming and games in this particular QUACKCAST, and of course Rob Halford, the fellow from Judas Priest, was in a famous computer game, which was something like a metal. I can't remember what it's called. Something about
oh yeah,
metal.
I forgot all about that fucking thing.
As the baddie.
Holy shit! Oh yeah. I forgot about that. I have nothing to add to the conversation. I'll just keep saying.
So there we are. As the baddie, general something or other of doing I don't know, he was a glam metal guy in that anyway. So anyway, this QUACKCAST we're going to be talking about computer games, video games, all that kind of stuff, and how it influences us and how it's a great little bit of entertainment media to get into, and but that's what we're going to chat about. But first we have to bring up the featured comic. So QUACKCAST is going to tell us about Giant Bee and Friend now.
Hello, this is QUACKCAST, and the feature I've selected for this week is Giant Bee and Friend by 1/2, and it is rated T for teen. This is a story about a lovely girl who works retail named Friend and a giant bee named Humphrey, and their daily conversations on worldly observations. It is not a love story, or at least it was not initially, but anything goes in the world of bees and honey. This comic is chock full of jokes. The puns and intellectual observations usually land. The dark humor can sting. The comic layout is a traditional 3-panel strip format. The colors are very happy and bright. Try to relate to all the characters, friend, buddy, baby girl, especially the giant bee, and read Giant Bee and Friend by 1/2, rated T.
That was QUACKCAST with Giant Bee and Friend. So, yeah, that's a really cool title, Giant Bee and Friend. Next up, we have the featured music. Gomez has given us the theme to The Last Aviatrix, which was QUACKCAST feature the other day. Interesting. So, this week Gomez has given us the theme to The Last Aviatrix. The first early morning rays of sun peek over the distant horizon, brightening the sky from grey to blue. The cold silence is shattered by an aeroplane swooping low overhead. Frenetic energy, speed, action, a whirlwind of active momentum and fury as sounds carry us along at a great rate of knots and then fade away. So, take it away, Gomez, with The Last Aviatrix. that was the featured music. Last Aviatrix, Gummels. That was so cool. Okay, gaming. What are your favorite games, guys? What games really did have like a bit of an impact on you?
Oh, Doom.
Doom. Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, the old. I haven't played any of the newer ones. I'd really like to. I played one of them. I think like the one that came out in 2016 for like no, it was the newer one from that. I played it for like a second and I got super killed. But the old original Doom, like I'll still listen to that music now and then, like renditions of like the Doom song and stuff, or even the songs from the newer Doom games, and like I'll write parts to my comic to it and stuff like that.
Wow.
But like thinking back, I never played Doom on my own computer. I don't think we ever had it at our house, but the first time I ever played it, I think, was at my uncle's house. Back way long ago when I was a kid. But yeah, I remember how much it struck me, just how instantly fun it was. Like the monsters walking around and then like seeing the guy's face in the corner and you know, the more and more beat up he got, the more health he would lose, the more he would get beat up and all that kind of stuff.
Blood from the corner of the mouth, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just such a badass game, and just cool in every single way that there is to be cool. So I think that really impacted my taste in the things that I like to create and stuff. There's a little bit of Doom sprinkled all throughout there, I think.
So the idea behind this QUACKCAST is like not only the impact the video games have on us, but like they also help us, think narratively, and they're a pleasure to play as well. Visually, they help us kind of conceptualize things, and they were part of the first popularity of webcomics, PvP, 8-bit fantasy, Ctrl Alt Delt, Penny Arcade, and many, many more that were had sprite comics. Oh my god, sprite comics. These all based on video games. So yeah, Doom always gave me a migraine when I played it, so I just gave up. It was just like the flashing lights was kind of timed, and I played it on like, I don't know, the 3DO when that was out. That was a weird thing, and I played it on that, and the refresh rate was just perfect for giving me migraines.
Oh, it sucks.
Yeah.
But it was so cool with like the it really popularized that first person perspective shooter. I think the first one to do it really was something like System Shock or Wolfenstein 3D. But Doom was the one that exploded it. And
Duck Hunt.
Duck Hunt. But yeah, Doom was the one that really massively popularized that, and it was very crude, but it set a scene. It was a horror first person shooter, which was a totally new thing, and it sucked you into that world and sort of created this this horror environment for you to be in, and it was pretty immersive, even though it was like pixelated as hell, and the 2D graphics pretending to be 3D graphics, and these monsters and their sound effects, shooting great globs of disgusting glowing snot at you or whatever it was, but yeah, it was really, really affecting, and it was so, it did it so well that it became so incredibly popular and sticks out as being one of the main formative video games. It's just too bad the movie wasn't very good at taking that and turning it into, something that really made use of what the games, the atmosphere that the games created.
Well, there is a law that no movie based off of a video game can ever be good. So they were just, they didn't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
I remember my younger brother telling me about Silent Hill when it was only a game and how scary it was.
Oh, yeah.
And Oz, what you say about atmosphere and like thinking of Doom and stuff like that, like that's kind of the age where video games would create a vibe and create an atmosphere. I kind of left video games by that time, so didn't get that benefit, but I love that and loved hearing about how scary Silent Hill was. The movie, some people like it. I didn't really like it, but apparently the game was terrifying.
It was. I used to watch my stepbrother play it a lot. My stepbrother used to play tons of games. There was a few that I would play, but I would mostly just watch him. And he would play stuff like Silent Hill and Resident Evil and stuff because I died all the time because I can't take fear. But I have like the fainting goat response with these video games. Like I just freeze up and I can't function. And I just get mad. Which, it makes it hard to enjoy stuff like story and stuff like that. Because you don't progress at all. But it was so fun to watch him play the games because one, like he was good at them. And so I got to vicariously enjoy the stories that you'd go through in Silent Hill. 1 and 2, they both just had this atmosphere that it's just very iconic and it stays with you. Like if I hear the theme song from it play or a little sound bite from that game, it brings me right back to watching him play that and just how into it you can get,
Wow, that's neat. I would contrast that with like arcade games from earlier. Like I hear those sounds now, which you can go online now and play a lot of these games. And the sounds are there, and I'm like, oh my god, how did we tolerate that back in the day? So, like I have to play it silently. Horrible.
I kind of like it for a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little taste.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can be enjoyable to even like to get back and have that retro feeling, even if they're a bit crude. Like I was telling you guys in the video cast that I had downloaded the old Dawn of War game, which is quite a few years old now. I mean, it's not as old as this Doom, of course, but so that's a 3D real-time strategy game. Real-time strategy set in the Warhammer 40k universe, and it's got a bit of a story to it. But the graphics are, even though it's 3D, it's quite crude. The characters are quite blocky because it was, based on the computer hardware of the time. I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, and which means you can't have that many pixels on screen when you've got like a real-time strategy game where you've got like hundreds of units and buildings and all this kind of thing. And so if you've got all these units, you can't have like them all beautifully rounded and rendered. So they made a lot of shortcuts, but you still get into it anyway. Like there's it takes a bit to get used to it. It's like watching a movie from like the 70s or something like that. The standard definition and the bad colors and all that kind of stuff. The slight blurriness you have in those 70s movies is something that is a bit crude and hard to get used to. But then you do, and it just becomes part of the background. You don't care. And it's the same as this with these old video games. You just got to get yourself acclimatized to it, and then you can get into it, and it becomes a bit easier to sort of deal with. So it works out.
Yeah. I play a lot of like vintage video games these days, just to kind of, if I'm like drawing or working on the computer or whatever, I'll take a break and like play that. But it's specifically the sound. that I can't get into. I can definitely enjoy playing the games, and they're as addictive as ever.
Oh
Yeah.
wow!
But
I used to be.
I would say for me, like Dragon's Lair would be the first one that had a vibe.
Oh my God,
That
Dragon
Don Bluth
Oh,
That
style.
was awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Hard and so hard.
It's
One of
too
the hardest
hard.
games.
Too hard. Yeah, when you have to pay a quarter, and you're dead in 5 seconds. It's like okay.
So if anyone
Yeah.
doesn't know, Dragon's Lair is a basically interactive cartoon, and
Don Bluth interactive cartoon.
you've got to
Yeah.
pick the right moment and the exact kind of instance to win through the cutscene into the next cutscene, which is all it
But
is.
part of the attraction of Dragon Slayer is that your character, who is a knight, he is the goofiest, most stupid knight you have ever seen. And part of the attraction is the various creative ways that he dies. Like
Yeah.
he never dies in the same manner. And it's
Oh.
always hilarious. It's always hilarious. It's like,
A million ways. I used to always just get killed by the lady with the rolling pin and not go any further than that. I think that's the very start of the bloody game.
that's the second one. That's his mother-in-law.
Oh yeah, that's the second one. That's right. I played that in later years, getting the sort of home computer versions. Yeah.
And of course the princess that he goes to rescue is super sexy, and actually, and nobody really will get that, but Pitface will. She is a huge influence on Daphne, that princess. So
yeah.
Including the name. Isn't her name Daphne in Dragon's Lair?
oh yeah, I think so. I think that's her name. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I forgot about that.
I thought that's why you were saying it.
No, I forgot about it completely. That's right.
Right.
Actually, yeah, that's it. But before Dragon Slayer, the earliest game that I played, and I think that it's really what got me very much into fantasy in general, which I still love, was Dark Castle. You played it on an Apple computer, on an Apple, one of those. Oh my God, the Apple ones that were like small little boxes, and
Yeah.
they were like educational. They had a very specific name.
Apple
I'm
Macintosh.
going Apple Macintosh.
Mm.
Pet
Yeah.
computer.
Macintosh. Yes, Macintosh computer. Anyway, I'm talking late 80s. That's how early this game was. And it was mind-blowing for the time because it was, although it was black and white, and it was basically like a very elaborate platform, like Donkey Kong sort of thing. You had this page boy who goes into this dark castle to defeat the Dark Knight that has the castle. And the design and the graphics were super detailed, very beautiful, and it was done on these computers that had a joke for memory. And of course, you could never save your game. It was, you went as far as you could, or you started over. Yeah, it was very fun, very hard, and I loved it. And I played both versions, both not versions, both games, because there was Dark Castle and Return to Dark Castle, or Dark Castle 2, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I want to find this. It's vaguely familiar. I might have tried it, but yeah, I want to go. Now I want to go try it.
and the one thing, and I think that Don Bluth took at least the inspiration from that, because the page boy also has a few goofy moments. If he gets hit, doesn't die exactly. He gets super dizzy, and he spins around himself, going like this.
Okay, probably an influence. Yeah.
Yeah,
Gives the old
and, that
bonk
was
on the
great.
head.
I mean, that's definitely like the style I try to draw in with my comic with typical strange. Like there's definitely a Don Bluth influence. There's an Archie influence.
Oh, I could see that definitely.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of it before this episode, but yeah, like I'm thinking now, like yeah, that's definitely an early influence. Just the whole goofy, chaotic vibe and the style and everything. Love it. And I didn't know his movie. I didn't know Don Bluth outside of Dragon's Lair till years later. Like I just knew Dragon's Lair.
Uh-huh. That's interesting. I didn't know there was those visual parallels. That's fascinating. For me, you know, back in the 80s, the only games I played were super crappy games like, you know, Galaxian and Space Invaders, and there's ones where you're like a knight on the back of an emu that flies, or an ostrich, and you go and knock other characters off platforms.
I play that all the time. I'm really into that right now.
Really? Oh wow.
Yeah, that's the one. Like I open a tab, and like when I have a drawing rendering or I need a quick break, I open up Joust.
Joust, yes, that's what it is. Oh bloody hell, yeah! I used to play that on my friend's microbee computer. Oh,
yeah,
it's like 1D graphics.
Yeah, exactly. But the sound effects, I remember they were very humorous at the time, like the screeching stop of the ostrich that you were riding. Yeah, now I can't tolerate the sound. But
well,
yeah,
games back then, it was just like the Wild West. Because I mean, people were coming out with so many different strange concepts and like doing the most they could with what they had in terms of the technology at the time. Danny on Game Grumps, he you know, he's an old timer, and he plays a lot of games from back then, and it's wild to see just some of the stuff that was around. Like what was that one? It was like a murder mystery kind of thing, and it was like actually done with video. You'd play it on the computer. I can't remember what it was called. I think there were a few like that, but it used like actual actors and stuff, and it was so like B movie acting and stuff. But that was really cool to watch.
Oh yeah, there was one on video. Yeah, what was that, Baines?
I said that's really neat. Yeah.
Night something.
Yeah.
It's vaguely familiar.
But yeah, it's wild how many different things there were. And then as things progressed, like you got into like the Nintendo era and stuff, there are just so many culturally iconic things that came with that. You know, I mean, of course, Mario and stuff, but like all, you know, different sound effects and stuff like that. And Mega Man, my brother used to play Mega Man all the time when I was a kid. And that's another thing that sometimes I'll still like to sit there and listen to the soundtrack. Because again, I couldn't play it. I was just too horseshit at it. I never progressed. So, but still, even as a spectator, that one really stayed with me. One game that I was able to play and that I nearly beat and that has stayed with me, because we all have those games that's like, this is the game that like defines my childhood, that kind of thing. And for me, that's probably Panzer Dragoon, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Which was the first and the second one. I've never got to play Orta, but those were beautiful fucking games. And I could be biased, but I think it's also very fair to say that they were just gorgeous games. And granted, like technology has come a long way through since then, but like everything from like the creature design, like I love how the monsters were like almost like organic, strange shapes, and the music was beautiful. There like still to this day, there will be things that um, that I'll think of. Like, for instance, if I'm getting in my car to go on a trip or something like that, I'll think of that one line from the opening of the first game, I think it was, where he, the original dragon rider, the guy who was on the dragon before, he gets shot and he lands before, your character, the main character. And he's dying, and he gives your character, the gun and tells them what to do. And he says, "My dragon knows the way." And so whenever I get into the car and I'm about to go somewhere far and I put on my GPS, I think of that line, "My dragon knows the way." And just little things like that still stay with you. But yeah, gorgeous fucking game. I'll rave about it forever. So
There's a good game on the early Dreamcast, I believe. That's where that came from.
Mine was on Sega, but I think it was on a couple different things.
Oh, yeah, it was Sega,
Mine was on
Sega
Saturn.
Dreamcast. Oh, Sega Saturn?
Sega Saturn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Saturn. Yeah, Saturn and then Dreamcast were the two things that came out in quite quick succession back when Sega was failing.
The magic of Sonic the Hedgehog could not keep it afloat forever.
No. Unfortunately. Those were gorgeous games. One of the games I really loved back then was Tomb Raider when that first came out. And that came out on PC, PlayStation, and the Saturn or the Dreamcast, one of those things. It came out on everything, basically. And I just loved that game, and because it had a female protagonist, which was really cool to look at, very athletic character, and that influenced Pinky Tay a lot as well. The look of the character.
I could see that.
Yeah, that was an influence for a long time for me. So
very assertive, strong-willed lady with polygon boobies. But it was like, again, I'll preface this by saying I never got to get very far into the game, but it had stuff like key moments that really stuck with you, like when that T-Rex comes out during that one scene, like a fucking T-Rex out of nowhere.
That terrified me.
You know what? I think it fed into my fear. I found out the other day still a very strong rooted fear of T-Rexes, and I've always credited it to Jurassic Park, which I'm sure is a big part of it, but I think that game as well. I was telling Tanya the other day, I won't fill this full of asides, but I was at the Milwaukee Public Library the other day, and they have this fake display. It doesn't even move or anything, but it's just like of T-Rex eating a Triceratops, and it's surrounded by like forest and stuff like that. And you walk past it, and there's all these sound effects playing in the room, like you hear like the doom, 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 and like the breathing and stuff. And I couldn't walk past it. Like,
oh wow.
I would try, and I did eventually get by it, but like there was that overcoming that sense of dread, like as soon as I walk by this thing, it's going to come alive and it's going to chase me and it's going to eat me. I had to wait for a family with small children to come by first before I was able to leave. They're
going to get them first.
Right. See, I'll survive. This is why I've endured so long. But I'm sure looking back at it, a great part of that fear is Jurassic Park, but also that scene in Tomb Raider. Because I remember when, once again, my stepbrother would play it, I would kind of dread that scene coming. I'd want to watch it, but at the same time, like, it was really scary.
Yeah, the music starts up and there's nowhere to go. You can't kill this thing very easily because it's an absolute monster. So, yeah, the only way is like there's a cheat I found in that you could climb up into this little gap in the rocks where it can't get you no matter what it does, and you can eventually kill it like with any weapon because it just hangs around. So if you're there forever, you can eventually kill it because it can't get you.
Oh my God,
Motherfucker.
guys! Do you remember that we used to actually buy walkthroughs in paper,
Yeah.
like in small
And-
manuals that would help you find ways to beat the game?
Yeah.
in magazines.
Because there was no internet. Oh, and we have to mention, at least for me, one of the most forming video games and even category of video games were the adventure games, and especially Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, which I loved. And when I say I loved, I mean I think it had 3 parts, so 3 ways to finish the game. I played all 3 of them many
That's
times,
cool.
not just once. So yeah, it was basically that video game was my favorite Indiana Jones movie. So that's how much I loved it. So,
Well,
That's cool, though.
they're very good in that they have a narrative that is an interactive narrative. So it's basically like a movie or a book or a comic. You know, all these things have a linear story. Even if like there's lots of different ways of completing the story, it's still linear. And it's a story that you can be part of and feel that you're making these changes yourself. So you become more immersed in the story. So
yeah, absolutely.
it's
And I
very
remember
influential.
those things came in many CD-ROMs. So you bought the game and it had like 3, 4, or even 6 discs. And every time it said, no, please insert disc number 2. Or please insert disc number 3, you know, in the PC. It was like, oh my God, I'm advancing the game. I am beating it. It was such a thrill that you were getting, at least I was getting, when you got to advance to the next disc, basically. But amazing times.
Yeah, when you have those bloody disc things, and you had to do that because there wasn't enough space on your computer or on the disc for the game. And then back in floppy disk days, oh my God, that was something else.
Yeah.
Or even
Oh my
real
God.
floppy disk games. Now those ones.
Oh, the bigger ones.
Yeah,
that were
oh my
floppy.
God. The diskette
my
guys
God,
were bad enough, but then when you talk about the big, like 8-inch floppies, or whatever they were, I can't remember. Now, that was a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean,
Freaky.
naturally, all of those games that we talked about were basically similar. They were breakthroughs into, you know, game technology for, you know, for their time. And I really like that I was there to be experiencing that, because every time I played one of those games, they felt so advanced and so amazing. Like, I remember especially the first game I saw with cutscenes. And then I think it was one of the most stupid games I have played. I think it was something like with X-Files or X-File-like. And the game itself was stupid, but the cutscenes were amazing. Like, feeling that you were, okay, you worked for this cutscene and then you sat back and you enjoyed the cutscene for like a minute or so. And it was amazing, that feeling.
Yeah, cutscenes felt like they brought the game even more reality than it, you were imagining that it had. So it was so cool to see, like with real actors saying real lines with real voices, not just computer generated crap. So
I mean, they were almost like a prize for getting to a certain part of the game. You know, like I got to make it to the next cutscene. I got to see what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's way better than what you had. I mean, I don't really play video games much now. So, well, I'm not really up to what the current standard of technology is now, but after a while, video games just became, oh, let's just animate the 3D stuff instead, but, like, polish it up a bit more. And so the character has, like, the voices and everything, or maybe not even the voices, it just has, like, subtitles, and that's all that's on screen. But that was nowhere near as impressive as the original stuff with the with the actual actors and things, which was, even though the games were cruder, that seemed like a way more sophisticated thing, and it was a downgrade to have the 3D characters starting to move around and them doing the having their narrative, or just having like text underneath, which is, it's weird to think about. I think even still, like when I see video game cutscenes, it still doesn't feel as good as it did when they had actual actors with props and green screens.
I haven't played many. I remember playing one time. We rented a bunch on a New Year's Eve many years ago, and the game itself was very simple, like not quite Asteroids level simple, but not far beyond that. And then you'd cut to these like fighter pilots. And it was Mark Hamill, and his like partner, or his like cohort, the guy in another jet, was Biff from Back to the Future.
Oh, really?
It was like actors in these sci-fi scenes. It was like freaking awesome, man.
What was that game?
I'm trying to remember. I'll look it up.
Like something Starfighter or something like that?
Something like that, probably. Mark Hamill and whoever was Biff. Wing Commander.
Wing Commander.
Oh.
Yes, there was a movie about that with all kinds of high-profile actors. I want to see that again. See if it is any good.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Yeah, but it didn't have Mark Hamill in it, which it should have. Wing Commander. Yeah, that was a very good one. Like, yeah, with real actors. One of the ones I played years ago was a what the frick? They've got like a role playing games around it and cartoons and stuff.
Final Fantasy?
No, this was a game about these like mechs that you get in, like Mech Warrior, but not. It's like a rival to that. And you have like these ones called the Snakes, and these other ones like with their mechs, and they're sort of themed around bears and all this kind of stuff. And they fight against each other, and these like teams of people. They have these huge hover aircraft carriers that ride around on the planet, and your mechs like are based in these hovering aircraft carriers, and you get off those and fight the other mechs. And it's a pretty basic game, but the cutscenes just made it worthwhile to get to the next one and to follow the narrative of the story as it progressed, which was so cool to see. You have this best friend who's in this mech, and she's helping you all the way, and then it turns out that she's actually like a double agent, and she tries to kill you, and then there's this ultimate showdown, and it was just so freaking cool. And like that betrayal hurt so bad because she was helping you all the way, and then suddenly she's betraying you and trying to kill you, and that's just, yeah, it was so freaking cool. So yeah, that was one, but I cannot remember what it's called. Bastard.
Monkey Island? That was called.
It's all Monkey Island Banes. It's just different versions.
Okay. Yeah.
So what was one of these games? Tans? Dark Forces. Star Wars Dark Forces. What do you reckon?
Yes. It was huge in Greece. Everyone was, showing off at what chapter of the game, what part of the game they were, and how dexterous they were for having advanced there. So this was a game. It was a first-person shooter game, 3D graphics that were, at the time were considered super cutting edge, and you played as this guy that, as far as I remember, he was a little bit like Han Solo. Maybe he was in the Resistance or something like that, and he is supposed to infiltrate and raid this giant mothership of the Empire. And he also has the Force, which awakens in him as you advance the game. And depending on the choices that you make, he becomes lighter or darker, and he ends up either being a Jedi or a Sith toward the end of the game. And you could play as either and choose the path, which was really, really big at the time, that you could choose how the storyline would progress with your own choices. And you could have different endings. So that was really huge over here in Greece, I mean.
Yeah, it really felt like a worthy continuation of the Star Wars movie series, more than, you know, prequels or sequels or anything like that. With that game like that, you felt like this is the way forward, because not only do I get to see this world again, I get to hear the sounds all around me and interact with it and make things happen and actually shoot like stormtroopers and just like TIE fighters or whatever, you know, just be a part of this world.
I remember that the only thing that got a sneaker from people over here, especially, I mean, my circle of friends, was that his name was Kyle. And that felt really non-Star Wars. It's like Kyle.
His dad is Mike Vader. He owns a car company at the side of the lot.
Yeah.
It was more like a Spaceballs name rather than Star Wars name. And his last name had Katarn or something like that. Katarn. But in Greek that means cursed. And it felt very much like a made up name that you make that you come up with in the schoolyard. So that was the only thing that made people laugh over here. Otherwise, it was considered super cool to play Dark Forces.
Well, yeah, it's a real step up from, I mean, we had, you know, games like Doom, which we were talking about way earlier, you know, with the 3D world, that it's interactive and you're going through, and first-person shooter. So Star Wars Dark Forces is another first-person shooter, but more of a story game. So it takes that and it takes it way further, which was a really cool thing. And it's based on a property that, you know, a narrative kind of world. One game that I really loved, it's not that old, was the Mass Effect series, which was a series of games that I really got into because of School Monkey, who was, you know, an admin on the site. And she was really into it and kept going on and on and on about it. She loved it so much. Like Garrus, who was one of these main characters in the game, and she had such a crush on him because of his cool voice. And it got me into it, so I bought the game and I think Mass Effect 2 was coming out at that time, and I thought, oh, I'll get into it. It's a sequel, but, you know, who cares? Don't have to start at the beginning. I really loved it. I loved it so much that I got the first one, and I got the third one when that came out, and it was cool. And that was in the style of, it's a very simplified first-person shooter. Not really a first-person shooter. It's basically an interactive movie where you get to you know, have some limited choices and some limited actions, you know, solve some puzzles, work out some mysteries, all this kind of stuff. But really you just want to see the story progress and the overarching story of the game, which is really what you get into. You I mean, I customized my character to be like Pinky as much as I could, of course. Pink hair, big nose, all this kind of stuff. So that was fun. But mainly it's the story that you want to see as it progresses. And it's an original world too, so it's like taking the Star Wars kind of stuff, taking Star Trek and creating its own sci-fi world, so you get to become immersed in a totally original sci-fi world, and it looks cool, it looks beautiful, and you want to be in there. It's like the Pete, you were saying with RuneScape, it's an immersive kind of escapist sort of thing.
Oh, I said RuneScape isn't very immersive, but
right, but you do use
it's an ugly game
for that.
It's really ugly.
So this is a game where you get to see like the classic sci-fi of like pristine white spaceship walls, all that kind of stuff, and lovely glowing lights on the screen, and it looks really good. So it's something that you want to explore these space stations, but you, unfortunately, because it's not as interactive as it pretends to be, you hit up against the walls of it very easily. It's only there just for looking around marginally. You can't really kind of live in this game the way you can with an MMO or something like that, unfortunately. But yeah, those things, it's a cool way of delivering a story. Like webcomics are a cool way of visually delivering a story. This is too. So
yeah, definitely. And you mentioned before that you had a character kind of modeled off of Pinky, and I bet like a lot of people who are writing their own stories do that with games. Like I used to play games like almost exclusively so I could make a character that was based off of one character or another. Like I'd have Bones, then I think I had Blitz off a couple times, and even a Helmut now and then. That was before he became an actual character, but in his early days, Helmut was a video game character that I would play with.
Wow.
And I still remember one time, I can't remember what I was playing, but somebody came by and said, "Your tune is hot." And I'm like, "Thanks. Yeah, he is. That's why I play him." So. Anyway.
Oh, geez. What's League of Angels, Chance?
It's a game.
Really? I would never have guessed in this context.
But I wanted to talk about a little bit because you mentioned webcomics, and I remember when I generally still am a fan of adventure games, and I remember Broken Sword was one of the games that really stuck with me. Not really for the gameplay. I mean, the gameplay was for still even now for most adventure games is standard. You have your cursor and you point, click, combine items. That sort of thing. But they had extremely compelling characters that you got to love due to the dialogue that they had, and also there was a bit of like a subtext in the entire story. I remember very specifically, I think I was playing the Smoking Mirror from the Broken Sword series. I think it's in there. So there is the main characters go and have to explore around where they are shooting a pirates movie. That is supposed to be a super blockbuster movie, and it has the lead that is a very curvaceous blonde woman, and the male lead is this very square-jawed, broad-shouldered character actor, and so there is like the female lead at some point is about to shoot her scene, and the director says, "Come on, you are start from page so and so." And she said, "But what about my big speech?" And the director says, "It's been cut." It's like, and it was, of course, now it is out of context the way I'm saying it, but it was really talking about how she was there just to be an object to be looked at and not really be an actual character in the movie. And that was a very nice commentary at the time, done in a very elegant way and very funny way. And I really appreciate that, and it stuck with me. So yeah, like a webcomic.
Yeah, games do that, which was it's something that you don't notice, that they could be witty and have clever kind of story elements quite apart from just the normal simple action. I remember I really loved I became addicted to this game. What was it? Vice City. Grand Theft Auto.
Oh,
Vice
GTA?
City. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So the Vice City thing was like immediately got me in with the visuals, because it had that really cool kind of cel shading look to the graphics they used, but not in the game, but just the graphic design of like the cover art and everything was this cel shading kind of look. But then when you played the game, it gets you in because it's like set in the 1980s, and it's got all this stuff like from Miami Vice and Scarface and all this. So these TV shows and movies that you would have watched. So it's set in Florida.
It takes place in Miami too, I think, right?
Yeah, definitely. So it's got all these like locations from the real Miami, and which I've never been to, but it's still, you know, something you can find on maps and stuff. And yeah, it's got the like clever ways of telling stories. Because it's got multiple stories within it. So you meet all these different characters and you go through their little storyline and you complete their little side twists in their story. And it's and you could recognize, oh, this is from Scarface. Oh, this is from Miami Vice. And everyone was saying, oh, you like Grand Theft Auto Vice City is all based on Scarface, which is, you know, it's freaking nonsense. It's based on all those Miami tropes and the huge like Miami Vice component to it. Like Scarface was what, early 80s, like late 70s or something. And this is mostly Miami Vice time, you know, late 80s kind of setting. Anyway, you even get to like some place on Star Island, I think it is, and you go there and they've got like movie sets, stuff like that. So, you know, there's commentary on, like, it was meant to be like a porn thing, but you know, you don't see any porn, of course, but they have like the cheap porn sets and that kind of stuff, which was a comment on whatever movies were popular at the time. But anyway, yeah, the music as well in that game, you have like a radio station, which was a fairly new thing, so you listen to that, and on all the radio stations, it's got like 3 or 4, there's like this beautiful developing narrative that they go through. Like there's one is a talk radio station, and you hear like the drama between all the characters and the people who are ringing in and the crazy things they're saying and stuff like that. There's this guy who does like the metal station, and called Laszlo, and he really loves himself, and he's having this fight with this guy who used to be the host of the metal station, and that's an ongoing thing. And
yeah, this was another game that my stepbrother would play, and I remember times when, because he'd play it for hours and hours, there was nothing else we'd do, and we would lose patches of the day because he would just drive around in the car and switch between station to station so we could hear what was going on.
Oh dear. Yeah, well, that's what I used to do. I used to just drive around in the car and just listen to it because it was so cool, or even just listen to the music, because I loved listening to the tracks, which were like it was such an immersive game that you could just drive around your car, look at the scenery, and just enjoy the music. So it was cool.
Run over a couple pedestrians if you get a wild hair up your ass. And then...
Couldn't drive for shit, so of course.
Oh, speaking of, do you remember the video game scare? Like, think of the children.
Oh, yeah.
Doing
Yeah, that was back around then, especially
Yeah.
with I think GTA really sparked that. And then I think there was another game too. It was like, wasn't it Hitman or something like that? And it was pretty brutal. And then people got all up in arms.
Hmm.
But
Oh dear. So realistic. They're going to be like desensitized and turn into mass murderers. Okay.
Exactly.
What were the Ottomans watching and the Romans and the bloody Normans and stuff like that, the Vikings. What was on their TV?
and they were all super peaceful, weren't they?
Exactly.
It was also, oh my God, and I remember, at least over here, sometimes society over here, especially when it comes to public discourse run by political parties, can be super prudish. And I remember even at the time when we had Amstrad games, like that far back. There were some games that we played on Amstrad, and like I'm talking far back enough where you had to actually code write the code for the game to run. Otherwise, there was no mouse or anything to point and click at.
Yes.
So that's that far back. So there was this game that was like Rambo, and I had it, I remember, where you basically have to plow your way through a ton of mooks and, leave corpses on your, in your path in order to, gain some kind of high hill or stronghold or whatever. I mean, it was pixels. Okay, you were killing pixels, and you were another pixel that was, murdering the pixels. So anyway, it was like, oh my God, it is teaching kids about war.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
In the crudest
Yeah.
possible sense. Oh my lord. Yeah, and the scare with Vice City was the prostitute characters. That, oh my god, you can pay these women for sex, and it's like in the most stylized, symbolic fashion that is just too silly even to think about. And it's not made for children anyway. So if you're buying this game
I
for
think it
your
was the
kid,
prostitutes and like running people over in the street and shit. Like it was a tasteless game in some regards, but it doesn't. Yeah, it kind of fed into this whole conversation at the time. The whole think of the children thing. I think South Park was coming under fire around then as well.
yeah.
And so yeah, there was just lots of stuff for the.
And in both those instances, South Park is not a kids show, and Grand Theft Auto is not a game for kids. It was just because it was perceived by moronic, brainless people that because it is a video game, it must automatically be for kids, and because South Park is animated, it must be for kids. They're not smart enough to comprehend that just because something looks like a cartoon. I mean, it is a cartoon. It doesn't mean it's the same as frickin' Bugs Bunny or SpongeBob or something like that. There's like all movies aren't the same. Like Snow White and the Seven Dwarves is great for kids, but Rambo or Debbie Does Dallas, they're also movies. They're not the same thing just because they're movies. So have some brains in your frickin' head, you idiot. You shouldn't be having kids if you're thinking along those lines. You fool. Oh, well. Well, anyway, I do not play video games very much these days because I find them way too addictive and they use up my time, so I have to be very careful at the way I play them because I do not have the self-control in order to to handle that very well. What about you guys?
About the same. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not playing anything these days. There's been a couple times I was playing. What was I playing before? Was it? I think one of those D&D based games. I don't know if it was Neverwinter or what. I think it was. And I played that for a while, a couple years ago. And I got to the point where I just had to do a shit ton of grinding, that, or I'd have to like buy loot crates, that kind of thing. That was the last one I played with the character that looked like Helmut as well. I'll preface this by saying grown-up Helmut, because I forget at times that outside of the people that I'm talking to, Helmut is still a child. But in my mind, he's the grown-up version, so that's what I would play with. But anyway, I digress. I think Neverwinter was the last game I played, and that was fun. I liked it, but I had to stop because there was just way too much grinding, and that was it was killing the buzz a little bit, so it weaned me off. But yeah.
Well, that's good. It forced you to reevaluate.
It did. Every now and then, though, my fingers itch, and I consider, should I go back and I'll just go check on things, see how it is, check it out a little bit, see if there's any changes. But I haven't given in, so Helmut's there, just sitting there. I think I left him dancing on a fountain in his underwear somewhere, and I just never came back.
He'll always be there.
You're all welcome.
The eternal dancer at the end of time. It's Helmut. Oh dear. I had a friend who, the way video games are now with you can buy things to advance or just buy different outfits and stuff. I had a friend who wasted $5,000 on a game.
Oh my God.
Of her money.
That can't feel good.
5,000.
Yeah, that's not an exaggeration. It was $5,000. So.
Wow, indeed.
Because of this. Oh, go on.
No, I spent $10 a month for the subscription to the game that I'm playing, and that's it. Like, you don't need to pay to win. And that is just blows my mind to hear that, like $5,000.
Yeah, there's some games out there. There's so many that do that whole, it's free to play until, you have to buy this and this and this upgrade, and it's not actually free. And it's just, I don't know. It just feels so fucking cheap, and it kills the fun in the game, because every time you have some stupid like treasure chest bouncing up like that, like buy this and this, it just kills the game.
Yeah.
It's stupid. I steer clear of that shit at all costs.
So I don't like the subscription world that we are in now. You pay a subscription to YouTube in order to get it without ads. You pay a subscription to like Photoshop in order to use it. Pay a subscription. So I bought the older versions of Photoshop, and it works fantastic. And I bought,
Clip Studio Paint was a one-time buy, and it's been pretty great to me. So I guess it depends on what you need. And you're a designer too, so you probably have to do a lot more. But
yeah. There are still some programs.
But yeah, I have had experience with games that force you, like push you to buy stuff. I think it was Raid Shadow Legends.
Oh, what? Oh, God. And of course, you're listening to the QUACKCAST. If you click on the link, you get the support us and play Raid Shadow Legends. You get this free character.
Raid Shadow Legends. And I liked the gameplay, I liked the premise, I liked all of that. And at least, it had the decency not to make you grind to eternity if you didn't buy stuff, but it was pretty pushy after a while. After you finish the storyline is where they really come in hard with the buy our stuff.
Yeah.
But at least you have finished the game technically.
There's some
And-
games
Yeah.
that, like, as soon as you start them, it's like there'll be like 50 million things that pop up. It's like it's purposely meant to kind of overstimulate you, I think. And it's like, you know, hey, you get this, and then you can buy this time limit, and then you can have the chance to get these items, and then like they just beat you in the ass with all of these pop-ups like as soon as you start playing. And as soon as back when I would start games, but as soon as I would get into something like that, I would just turn away, because a lot of times that means that the game is going to be pretty much throwing that shit at you all the fucking time.
Yeah.
And it's just too much.
Yeah, when I
Yeah.
play mobile games, it's I only really want the ones that I can either buy straight out, or like
Yeah.
there is an like you do the free version with advertising, and then you can buy the version without that. No subscriptions, no like extra features. Either you buy it or you don't. You know, there's that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not opposed to a subscription if it is, reasonable.
Yeah.
And the game that I'm playing right now has microtransactions if you want them, but by no means do you need them. You really don't need them.
That's
It's-
good.
It's they are not in your face either. They are in a very specific button that you have to go and click to see what they have available. But it doesn't, pop up in your face at all as you are playing, which I really appreciate.
Hmm.
So if you do want to buy stuff, you know where to go. But if you don't want to buy stuff, nobody is bugging you with it. And when you download it, you can play the first world basically. It's like a demo trial. So if you like it and you want to continue on the storyline and you want to continue in the other worlds, you pay the subscription. Otherwise, you can still, infinitely play in those dungeons that are available with whoever is there at the time. I find that a decent deal. I mean, they are not trying to
Yeah.
undermine you and get into your wallet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's upfront about the cost that
Mhm.
you can expect to pay.
Oh, it's a good way to do it, but yeah, still. The old style of no paying for any extras. Still my favorite.
Yeah, definitely. And there are still plenty of games like that too. Like there's a ton of games on Steam that you can just buy outright, and or you could just be like me and just watch people play games all the time, and not actually
yeah.
interact.
That's
That's
a
also very
good way to
nice.
do it.
That's pretty fun, actually. Yeah.
That is a good. Oh,
I
anyway.
watched
Oh, sorry.
Undertale. Sorry, I just wanted to say that I watched the entirety of Undertale like that, and I made no moral decisions whatsoever.
Undertale. I've heard of that one.
I think
It's a really good. Yeah, it's Undertale. I threw that video at you that day. I remember.
Oh, yes. You were playing it.
Yeah, Undertale is it's done a lot. It's one of those games that's done a lot to kind of mold how other games are going. Really good game though, from what I've watched. I liked it. Everybody liked it.
Big influential one. Well,
Yeah.
no, I'll just end by saying, sort of reaching the end of the time of the QUACKCAST, that some other ways that video games influenced me was like in one of the parts of PTA when she's like in the mecha, all the mecha kind of like stuff was influenced by games in the way that's depicted, and especially from a more first person point of view. Because you only get to see that kind of thing in video games, and you get to hear like machine gun sounds and all that rendered in a really kind of realistic way in games. So that gave me an idea of how it would sound and how it might look, when the guns flash and that kind of stuff. So it was really good for working out how combat would go in my comic. So, yeah, video games like Battlefield 2
Oh.
are really helpful.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I can see how that would definitely be the case for you. I'll say real quick too that I forgot about this until now, but back when I was working on Putrid Meat, I actually had begun, you know, those old school top-down RPG games, like you have the little pixel character, the little pixel sprites walking around and stuff. I started making one of those for Putrid Meat in RPG Maker, and I didn't get very far, but every now and then I still think about it, and I think it would have been a really cool little game. Like I remember laying out Septica on the maps outside, and then you started off in Charlotte's room, Charlotte the Harlot, and like I very vaguely remember what you had to do, but like you had to go and look in the toilet and retrieve something, and I was having a lot of fun putting that together. I didn't get very far, but maybe one day I'll pick it up again, because it Putrid Meat just went along so well with the little things you could do with the RPG Maker. So maybe one day.
That's perfect. Yeah. Pick stuff out of it. And Bane, say you've modeled various things in your comics now using 3D stuff. Technology that was...
Yeah, I'm not doing much of that in comics that anybody's seen yet, but that's what I've been working on for months now, and definitely... It's a long time ago that I played The Sims, where I was making characters, but it's definitely, and like now that we're doing this episode, I see that connection. I would spend so much time just making characters in The Sims and making groups, and then that's sort of an exploration game in a way too, where you can just sort of, a lot of it is your imagination. You put characters together and you have them do stuff. That's kind of very similar to how I'm putting things together in 3D now, just kind of making these different characters and like kind of stand them together, put them in environments, and like kind of come up with relationships and stories that way. It's great fun. And
cool.
Yeah. And its seeds in video games.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh.
They've corrupted us all.
Yeah, they have been very formative. Okay, well, we should wrap it up then and finish the cast. Thanks very much, guys, for being on the QUACKCAST number 550, the Gamecast.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.